Hi everyone, Kimberly here. Welcome to Tuesday's Transformational Tip. Today, let's get right into it. Let's talk about raising our frequency. So let me be clear. When I talk about raising frequency, I'm not so much talking about positivity or our mood, although that can be kind of in there. What I'm talking about when I say raise frequency, in my experience, is raise self-worth. Now, why wouldn't we have great self-worth? What I think is, we have spent so much time in our childhood trying to fit into these little tiny spaces, these little tiny boxes. We put ourselves in to try and accommodate someone else's agenda, someone else's self-worth, kind of to create that bond or to create that acceptance, which is totally normal. In the process, I think we've forgotten about this true spirit of who we are. We've forgotten about some of our gifts and some of our talents and some of our expression, like how we express ourselves. And so I think that's directly related to calling. And I think that's why now a lot of us have this pull to put, like our calling is pulling us out of that box to stand tall and to let go of whatever we acquired trying to fit into that box. And we have to start relearning and appreciating all of our gifts and our talents and the quirky little things that make us who we are, that bring about the expression and the true spirit of who we are. And so I think a lot of it is about letting go of what we believed we are and embracing what we didn't believe we are, what we didn't know we are. So it's like unlearning and then relearning. And so I think a lot of that is based on dealing with all the feelings that we have inside that do not resonate, that are limiting us coming into that calling. So what does calling feel like? Let's look at just feeling instead of doing. Let's look at feeling first. I think everything is feeling first. We look at calling, we think satisfaction. We think I feel useful. I feel good in what I'm doing. I feel full. I feel whole. I feel joy. It may not always be a good mood. It may not be always positive, but there's this long-term vision and all the feelings associated with feeling like we're in the right place and we're in the flow and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're using our talents. We're using all of those things we have about ourselves that make us who we are, the fingerprint of who we are, the spirit of who we are, that's special. We're using all of that. And so I think it's about feeling into that, taking out the feelings that prevent the frequency from raising. So it's like taking out this, letting the frequency rise, taking this out, letting the frequency rise. And so some of the ways how do you do that? All day long we're having feelings about all kinds of things, but I have ways that I kind of feel into those feelings. And so I have a little list here under my camera. So I'll share with you guys what I do to kind of look at all the feelings that are going on that are kind of preventing me from bobbing up and prevent me from being in alignment with that calling and with all of the great things that come through the calling, all the feelings that are associated with calling. And so one of the first things I do is, if I wake up in the morning so this was a little bit more before, I don't have this as much anymore, but I always did this. If I had something on my list for the day to do and I didn't feel like I was up to the task for whatever reason, in a feeling way, I would sit and just write it all out on paper. I feel like this, maybe it's this, and just whatever came to my mind. Venting on paper. And what I found would happen is it would just dissipate because I would acknowledge whatever was there. And I think that's a big part of the feeling, is acknowledging whatever is there. It doesn't mean because we write it out we're enhancing the negativity. No, it's there anyway. And if we don't look at it, we're going to carry that for days. I've seen people carry this for days. It may be a limiting belief or a blocker that came up while we were in the shower, for example, I would love to do this or have this. That's the calling speaking to us. And then we say something like, in some way, shape, or form, that's not possible. And so that is the voice calling that how you stuffed yourself in the box when you were younger. That's like, well, I would love to express myself in this certain way, but I can't because the person or the group won't allow for that expression. And so there's those feelings underneath it. And so that's kind of how it pops up. We don't have to go back to 1942. We can just go right there, right now, and we'll feel it. And we can dissipate that right now. And then all of that lineage can start to dissipate too. It's magical. I've had great results from doing this. And so step one is write it all out and just let it go in the paper, burn it in the fire, just get rid of it. It's done. Acknowledge it. A lot of it just wants to be seen, wants to be looked at, acknowledged. And then we can just, I don't even want to say release it because it gets integrated, which means it becomes something useful now. It doesn't just disappear forever. We still remember those things, and those are the fuel, and those are really intricate parts that we need for the calling, for our calling, which is like, I think, why we're here, right? And so the other thing that I do when I think about feeling and embracing all the feelings that go on is throughout the day, if we have something that fires up inside, when it's something we look at that reminds us, could be a beautiful picture of something that we would love, and oh, there you feel that feeling again, just like what we just talked about. You can write it out, but you will see that when you're driving a car, it's a little bit tough to write everything out. So just sitting with that feeling and just breathing through it and embracing it. Say, you can even talk to it. I allow you to surface, show yourself. What's this about? Share. And when we have more of a mentality or a way of looking at it as share and show me what's there so I can get through it, because calling is really funny like that. Calling will ask you to do something really, really complicated or something you feel is really difficult, and then it will show you the blockers that are there in front of it to clear. It's not that it's not meant for us. It's meant to, you want this and you feel like this is really for you, but there's something coming in the way. And that means it's time to clear that out. It's not needed anymore. And you need the perspective from that very blocker or thing for the calling, right? Okay, so the other thing is affirmations. I use affirmations. It's another way I get in there and figure out what's going on. So I use affirmations in two ways. I use them as a self-hypnosis right before I go to sleep or right when I wake up. And I just declare what I am doing. I declare what I am, I am. And I just list all of it. The most empowering I am statements that I can think of. And sometimes they're the same, and sometimes I switch them up depending on how I feel. And the other way I use affirmations is if I feel like there's something that I need, it's blocking me, okay? I am, just for example, I'm healthy, I'm well, I am capable. Let's look at I'm capable. So what's the opposite of that? I'm not capable. Somewhere I feel like I'm not capable. And so I dig into that. I'm not capable. And I look at, how does that feel? And I look at how that feels. And then I go into, what's the emotion around that? And when I can get some awareness around it, I'll feel it fire up and expand. And then it integrates. Then I take the perspective of, I'm not capable, what that's about. And then I use it to move forward for my calling. I've been doing this for 10 years. I do the same thing. I have a lot of perspective because I don't want to forget about all the blockers I had. I don't want to forget about all the limitations. I don't want to forget about how I stuffed myself in that little tiny box. I want to use it as fuel to accomplish my calling, to live my calling, what I'm here for. And just for the record, I think the whole thing is our calling. But I think, like I've said before in these videos, I think we get closer and closer to a place of realizing we're on that journey. Instead of always, in the beginning, we're trying to get to the destination. And there's a part where we start to feel like the whole journey is the destination. Now we start having fun. That's the part where I think, oh, okay, I get it. Now it's a little bit more fun. So now I'm going to dig in a place of, from a perspective of curiosity and fun, instead of, oh, this is treacherous. But in the beginning, it's really heavy, because we really do have these heavy emotions that come from stuffing ourselves in really tiny, small little boxes, and all these feelings that come with it. And so in the beginning, it's not as obvious, but as we get going through this and we get used to it, it gets easier and easier and easier, I promise you. And so the other way that I'm looking at a little list under my camera, is stop shying away from something that's really difficult that you don't think you can do. And I've done another video on this too. Think about something that you want to do that's really big in your mind. A lot of people say set goals that are kind of realistic so you don't get discouraged. No, set really big, unrealistic almost goals. Yeah, unrealistic, big goals, and think to yourself, this is going to take a while, because I have to clean up whatever's in front of that. But because if you can feel something that's for you, then it probably is. You wouldn't have something if it doesn't belong to you, you won't have it. You only have your perspective and your experience, and that's all you have. So if it's for you, it will stick, it will bother you, it will pull you forward, it will nag you to move forward. And so step by step by step, take these little tiny forward steps, and more will be revealed. And then a blocker or a feeling coming from stuffing yourself in the little box will pop up. And then it's time to acknowledge that and let it go, integrate it to use it for the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And we keep going like that. So just because there's lots of things coming in here and you're feeling insignificant and not valuable enough and not validated and feeling all of these things that come up are a reflection of that little tiny box, we're trying to acknowledge those and integrate them so the frequency raises. Another one, frequency raises. But the greatest way to do this, and it will push your buttons, no doubt, pushes mine all the time, but I've been doing it enough to know that it's all part of the plan. I say to myself, this is a bummer, but it's all part of the bigger plan. And so look at it like this is big. It's really big, and I'm going to start with really small steps, and there's going to be limitations pop into it, and there's going to be feelings of, I feel so small right now. There's going to be all of that pop up, insecurity, fear, and that's perfect. That is perfect. That is the time to acknowledge it, let it integrate, and move forward. And then another one, and keep going like that. And the other thing that helps this is if we start making a list of things that we want to do, this really helps on the other side of the feeling. So it helps build confidence. I've built a lot of confidence by this, and that is do what you say you're going to do. Make a habit of doing what you say you're going to do. This will help your self-worth, your confidence, because at the end of the day, this game is about me and me and me and you and you and you. It's about you. So everything within this is about you. I don't like to attach myself to the story of the person. I like to just think of that person was used as an instrument so that I could come into the true spirit of who I am once again. I can remember the person that I was before I stuffed myself in that box. And I can start remembering all the things that need to come forth and need to be recognized and acknowledged within myself. And I need to have confidence in all of those things before I can move forward into my calling. It's very, very important. So one of those ways is doing what I say I'm going to do. Write it down the night before, write it down in the morning. You get up and you do, even if it's the smallest thing, you do it step by step by step by step by step. And so it just creates such a, yeah, I did it. I'm moving that much closer. Even if you're having a bummer day, you can say, I did that. I'm having a bummer day. That happened, and I wasn't really expecting that to be in the plan, but I did that, what I said I was going to do. It's about, I have reliance in myself. I trust myself. I am reliable for myself. I value myself. I feel worthy in myself. I give myself that worth. I give myself that reliance. I don't look at it as I'm being reliant for something. It's all about me and myself. Inward first, inward first. All of it is inward first. And so creating that and building on that is so important to raise our frequency, raise our self-worth, self-reliance, confidence, all of these things. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that I do to kind of get in at those feelings and get myself out of that box, to stand up, stand tall, and to start moving towards the calling, consciously moving towards the calling. I think all of our life is moving towards that calling, but because we have to be, like they say in some of the law of attraction stuff, we have to have been down in order to know what it is to raise up. We have to have low frequency, the way I see it, in order to appreciate and know a higher frequency. So I think it's all a part of it. And these are just some ways that we can get into and kind of acknowledge those feelings, acknowledge them, integrate them, and then keep moving into a higher frequency. Because I will tell you something right now. In the past, when I was younger and had so much less responsibility, I have been in states of pure bliss for very long periods of time with a lower self-worth than I have now. And I manifested very small, how do I say that? A much smaller level of creations, manifestations than I do now, with a much larger, we could say, self-worth, higher frequency, and being more of a lower mood positivity, we would say. So I think the key is not so much the everyday mood and the positivity, and I have to kind of deny myself, deny what's there, because I need to be in a good mood and I need to be positive. I think it's much more efficient from what I've experienced. I can only speak from my own perspective, but having a higher self-worth and knowing the long term and knowing what I am, and sometimes feeling, because when we're not avoiding or ignoring how we truly feel, we have to sit for a second. It's not always fun to look at some of the stuff we've been carrying. And so how are you in a positive, positive and a great mood when you're looking at that stuff? In my experience, I feel like you get kind of a pass from life to kind of look at that, do it, raise your self-worth, and don't even think about the mood and the positivity. That will come with it a little bit later. Those things will start popping up, if you will, when we start I say getting rid of, once again, it's kind of the language we're used to hearing, but acknowledging and integrating all of the feelings and emotions that come from stuffing ourselves in those little tiny spaces. Once we start to acknowledge that, once we start to kind of integrate that, it kind of fizzles out and fades back in the backdrop of our experience, and now we can move forward in the calling. That's way more powerful than anything else. It's the most powerful thing I have seen, because we do want to create the life that we want to create, and we do want our abundance, and we do want to live our calling. And I think it's all the same stuff. So those are my tips for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next week on another Tuesday's Transformational Tip. Bye.